what we have to remember is these are your obligations, okay? So your obligations are to repair and maintain the property as you've given it to the tenant. But the tenant also has obligations and responsibilities under the tenancy agreement. And many, many tenants don't recall this. They don't remember this. They don't think this. They think you are their babysitters. And I'm going to tell you a few funny things that tenants have called up and complained about just after I've quoted this to you. So in a case, Warren v Keane, which I think was 1953, I'm so sad that I remember all of these acts, aren't I, James? Lord Denning quoted that the tenant must take proper care of the premises. He must, if he is going away for the winter, turn off the water and empty the boiler. He must clean the chimneys when necessary and also the windows. He must mend the electric light when it fuses, and he must unstop the sink when it is blocked by his waste. In short, he must do the little jobs around the place which a reasonable tenant would do. In addition, he must not, of course, damage the house willfully or negligently. But apart from such things, if the house falls into disrepair through fair wear and tear or lapse of time or any reason not caused by him, the tenant is not liable to repair it. So in English, what that means is this list here are tenant obligations. These are not for you to be going out and doing. So changing light bulbs. We had one guy, and I'm not lying, he rang up and he said, I can't change the light. The light is not working, Amy. I know you need to change the bulb. He said, but Amy, it is in the ceiling. I know all lights are in the ceiling. You need to get some step ladders and change it. Another one, they rang up and they said, and it's poor Amy, she always gets them. Amy, there is a problem in the garden. There is insects. That's where insects live. So some of the things that we get are just crazy, but the tenants are responsible for changing the batteries in the smoke detectors as long as that's within your tenancy agreement. Repressure in a combi boiler. Claire, Kylie, how many people ring up and say, got no hot water or heating and it's just a pressurisation problem? It's probably 80% of boiler calls that we get is repressurisation. Do you want to pay 50 quid, 75 quid for every single call out to go and do that? Now, you can expect tenants to repressurise a combi boiler only if you've provided them with instructions on how it should be done, which is where instruction manuals are important. So what we do now, we're in a little bit of a different time where you don't need to keep the instruction manual that come in the box because we can go online and we can download it. There's YouTube videos. We utilise all of those things when tenants call up and report problems. We don't want to send a contractor straight out to cost you money. So we always try and get them to have a look first. We're never asking them to, take the pipe off the bottom and just turn the gas meter off. None of that. Just repressurising the boiler. Bleeding radiators, they are supposed to do it. Unblocking toilets and sinks that are, as Lord Denning said, part of their waste. Keeping the grass cut and sweeping up fallen leaves, maintaining the garden. Taking care of pests such as ants and wasps during seasonal changes. You are only responsible for pests if there is a problem with the building and they are getting in that way. So for example, mice, rats, if there's holes where they're coming in from, you are responsible to fill the holes, solve the problem with the rats. But if it's things that they're not because of there's holes in the building, and it might be the way that the tenants live in. We've had tenants where they're living so disgustingly, mice are going to occur. That's tenant responsibility, remember that. Wiping away excess moisture from windows due to condensation. Condensation is a massive problem. This is 9 times out of 10 tenants' issue. It's ventilation. 9 times out of 10. And they are responsible for wiping that down. Any questions on the repairing obligations? Yes, David?
I've got a line of Leylandii.
Line of Landi?
Leylandii tree.
Leylandii, okay.
That's the pronunciation, yeah. I keep them at about 14 foot, but you can leave them, they're 30 foot before you turn round. Obviously a tenant. But is he responsible for paying for somebody to come round and cut them to level?
My interpretation of the maintaining of gardens is that they are to mow the lawn, keep the borders intact, the things you would expect a tenant to do, not deal with any sort of, I don't even know what a Leylandii is, but is it a tree? Yeah. I think that should be your responsibility. And furthermore, you probably wouldn't want tenants to start messing with it, because if I'm your tenant, I'll probably just chop it down, and I've just probably done something outside of the tree preservation order. We actually had a tenant that had got a magnolia tree in the garden, and they just chopped it down. The tenants aren't qualified to deal with, you know, substantial trees, and as landlords you have to make sure that the trees within your gardens and your boundaries aren't covered under the tree preservation order. And bear that in mind if you ever give your agent any instructions to do anything. One of the questions we now are trained to ask is, can I just check before we do anything with that tree, is it covered by tree preservation order? Because apparently it's didn't we get a letter through saying that we'd done something with a tree, and you know they were pressing charges against a landlord or something for not following the preservation order. It's very serious. So I'd say you should really maintain things that are above mowing the lawn and so forth. Yes?
Quick one about gutters.
Gutters, tenant.
Gutters are tenants.
Yes, gutters are tenants' responsibility, but you should make sure that they're clear and clean at the start of tenancy, and then it's their job to unblock the gutters. And any damage that's caused from gutters not being cleared would also belong to the tenant. Because quite often if your gutters are cleared and stuff, you could start getting water ingress into the house. That would be responsibility of the tenant. Any other questions?
You wouldn't, if you happen to have chimneys, you wouldn't leave that down to the tenant to get the sweat.
Well, we used to, because what we used to do was we'd give the tenants, not them do it themselves, but what we would insist on is that you sweep it at the start, and then the tenant must produce to us a chimney sweep certificate to say that it's been done by a professional throughout. We're not allowed to do that no more because of the tenant fee ban. So we can say you've got to sweep the chimney, but we've got to let them do it themselves. So it might be something that you want to reconsider in terms of the tenant fee ban.
I think you find if it's not done on an annual
Yeah, I get
basis,
it.
you wouldn't trust the tenant to
Yeah.
avoid on your insurance.
Of course, yeah. And don't forget that if you are in a position where you have got a chimney, I'm just going to throw another piece of legislation at you, which is the Smoke Alarm and Carbon Monoxide Detector Act. You must have a CO2 detector in every room that can burn solid fuel.
You just said batteries earlier on smoke.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to be harder on it.
Well,
Carbon monoxide was a battery.
no, the smoke alarms are battery as well. The laws contradict themselves, okay? So let me just say, the Smoke Alarm and Carbon Monoxide Detector Act states that battery alarms are acceptable. Then you go on to electrics, where it's got, you know, the BS minimum standards. Building regs, that's what I'm thinking about. So every property that was built after 1992 has to have mains hardwired smoke alarms, and that's what all electricians are recommending when they're having smoke alarms put in and everything else. But this act here just says in order to comply with this, you just need battery. My recommendation is hardwired smoke alarms interlinked with battery backup. But battery smoke alarms, to comply with this piece of legislation, are acceptable. CO2 battery as well, but CO2 alarms are only needed in rooms where solid fuel can be burned. They're not needed in gas appliance rooms. But if they are recommended, best practice. And I think, again, it's crazy. I mean, where's the carbon monoxide most likely to come from? Probably the gas appliance. No legal requirement.
Just recommended it.
It's best practice. It's absolute best practice. Right, so it's 8 o'clock now, or just over, because I always told you I talk too much. Yes, sorry, sir. Sorry.
Boilers in bedrooms.
Yeah. Legal stance, I don't really know. I don't like them because of the whole carbon monoxide thing. If you have got a boiler in a bedroom, 100% you need to have a carbon monoxide detector in there. You would need to check with other laws. I mean, to be honest, if the council come round, I would suggest that they'd say if it's a habitable room and it's where somebody's sleeping, it's a bit borderline dangerous. But I know of no legislation that says you can't at the moment. If there is a boiler in a bedroom, I would definitely say CO2 and definitely boxed, but box ain't going to keep away a gas leak, is it? Carbon monoxide, yeah.